was responsible for all the real estate owned by GE, which turns out to be in the order of 5,000 acres on the coast. So, and a lot of that has to do with the Half Moon Bay golf links. Anyway, so they gave me his name. I didn't know that at the point in time, so I tried calling him, and he wouldn't answer. I called him once, I called him twice, I called him 3 times. He didn't answer. He didn't even pick up the phone. So I said, well, maybe the Lord's just telling me I should go someplace else. So I called somebody else, and he answered, and I went and saw what was in the book. It was a multiple listing book, and back then it was a book bigger than that book. And it's about that high, but even wider. And all these pictures of houses, and in all those houses, there was only 4 that were in our price range and where we wanted to be, okay, what we thought was we could afford and what we could live in, okay. So he took me around, showed me all 4 of the houses. None of them were the right house. And that's when what Grandma said happened, is that I ultimately called him after I had spoken with this other realtor who had shown me all the houses. And the etiquette, at least, between real estate agents is if someone shows you a house, then they get the commission even if somebody else sells you the house. Whoever shows you to it first, okay? Because otherwise it would be considered stealing it from somebody else. So I told this guy that I had seen the 4 houses. He said, that's okay, come on over anyway. So I came over, and that's when he showed me this great big book, and I said, yeah, I saw that one, yeah, I saw that one, yeah, I saw that one, yeah, I saw that one. It's okay, I'll drive you around. So he drove me around and showed me there's some very nice areas out there. And he showed me those areas, and then as we're driving along the highway, he said, oh, by the way, there's another house coming on the market that my partner and I are considering selling. I'll talk to him tonight to make certain he want to sell it. And I can show it to you, but I can't let you in until I let the present renter know that I'm coming in. I have to give him 24-hour notice. So that's what happened. And then Grandma, as Grandma said, she gave me a list of things that night to be finding it, and it was all there. I felt that was the right place, and God supplied it. It was all, I mean, you have to, I don't know, looking back, I realized that it was a whole lot bigger than I thought. If you think you have to buy a house, and God says it's going to be, this is where you're going to live, but there's no houses to buy. What do? God just showed up, and that's the way our life has been. God always shows up. And same thing with selling the house back there. So tell them about your adventure with the ice and snow.
Well, of course, we found the buyer, and thank the Lord. The ice on the driveway was 4 inches thick. That's underneath the snow, because what happens is you'll get a day that's warm enough that the snow will melt, and at night it freezes, and then it builds up, and it builds up. Well, the movers brought in their semi, and they were trying to get up this driveway, and they couldn't because of this solid ice. And finally, I just said, look, I'm getting out of here. You get that truck up. And, they finally drove it up onto the lawn and were able to get it up close enough to the house and packed it. And boy, was I glad to get out of there. It was a place that was very, to me, it was, I was very concerned about the safety of the children. They had no sidewalk to walk on. They walked up the street, and you only had grooves in the street where the snow wasn't, where the buses or the cars would drive. And that's how they would go up the road, is up where the tires were going. And these were little guys. And they had to walk a block or two up to the bus stop to go to school. 20 below zero for the whole month of February. And one day I don't know why, I ran upstairs, came back down right away. Liz wasn't in the house, and I looked around for her. She had a little gown that just went to the floor. She was barefooted. And of course, she didn't have any hair. You know, she was another one of these hairless kids. And she had followed the boys out, and she, barefooted, was walking. You could hardly see her because the snow was so high. She was walking up this groove where the tires were to follow her brothers. Barefooted, just that little cotton gown on, and it's 20 below zero. And I'm thinking, you know, and I went and picked her up, and she didn't have a clue it was cold. It just doesn't register to little kids. But, you know, and I remember going after the boys because they didn't get home. After school, the buses slid off the road, and the kids were in the car. I remember in the bus, and then another bus came and got them, and they didn't make it. So it was like, and I would go to school, and I'd say, the kids didn't get home, and he said, I don't know, all the buses left, well, I don't know where the children are, you know, we didn't have a, you know, and I'm thinking, holy mackerel, you know, my kids.
No cell phones, of course.
No way of communicating with anybody, the school was shut down. And so I would try to follow where the buses would, and then I found the second bus that couldn't go anywhere, and I just put lots of kids in my car, and I drove to their houses and dropped them off. But on the way there, my car, it was a station wagon. On the way there, I was going down a hill sideways like this. But, I mean, it was facing the ditch, and it was sliding right down the hill, just like this, you know, and I'm thinking, I am getting out of here. Lord, I just can't handle this anymore. This is just not my cup of tea. I was really glad to leave New Hampshire.
But the place we moved to in Half Moon Bay was a wonderful transition place because it wasn't hot California weather. It was very, very, very mild. And additionally, the house that we bought was right across the street from a small park. And the other side of the park was the open hills, and the boys would be able to play in the open hills. Additionally, a quarter mile away was the harbor, and they would go down and play in the harbor. So they have tons of stories that you should record sometime with Bill and Dave of what they did in New Hampshire and other places. But anyway, it was a wonderful transition because there wasn't a complete change in kind of environment. It was pretty much the same environment except that it was much warmer on the coast.
Now, it was low 50s, and my kids thought it was the tropics.
Yeah.
They went outside and,
Yeah.
and they'd get out there and romp around with short sleeve shirts on.
We went to school.
And,
short.
you know,
Well, we moved there obviously finally at the end of January.
yeah.